you and I had the opportunity to have lunch together, sit down. It was lovely, right? But when
Right.
we go to networking meetings, that's not necessarily the time to see your friends.
No, it's that's the time to go and meet other people.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
building new relationships or fostering relationships that you've already made. But I have dear friends that I've made in this industry, and when we see each other at networking meetings, it's more like, "Hey, nice to see you," but there's no like, "Hey, how you been?" kind of thing.
Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome episode of Ask Me How I Know. You are going to be absolutely amazed and thrilled, just as I am, to be listening and sharing space with Allison. Allison, I am so grateful to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Julie. It's great to see you. We
Yeah.
haven't seen each other since you were visiting Nashville this summer.
And that was an absolute blast. So, Allison and I, this is the power of social networking, everybody, is that Allison and I are connected through through a networking group. And next thing you know, I'm flying out to Huntsville and Nashville to check out the markets. And Allison's there, and I'm like, let's connect up. Not only that, though, but we got to see Michelle Appel and connect up and have she and I had our daughters. It was such a great time, so much fun. So I already thought the world of you before meeting you in person, and then meeting you in person, and the caliber of conversation that the three of us had. Filled my heart, but it also filled my brain, and just like made me feel so energized to just continue and press on and keep going and inspired. So
Yeah.
anyway, keep being awesome. I'm like starting with that. I'm just to say, keep being awesome.
You are so sweet, Julie. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for all those beautiful compliments.
Yeah, and everyone, like, you really do need to connect up with her because she's just a beam of radiance, and so you will definitely be uplifted when you are following what Allison is up to. But
Oh.
speaking of what you're up to, what have
Mhm.
you been up to? You have a really neat eclectic background, and maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, I am an accidental investor. I love that term, an accidental, whatever it is. But I moved to Tennessee 5 years ago from the Northeast, from Vermont. And in reflection, I realized I was living in a hotbed of rehabbing, and I was watching it happen just on my street, but I didn't get a full understanding or wasn't really interested. I was the mom of two small children. I was a full-time mom. I ended up homeschooling them up through middle school. So that was my passion, that was my love. And I kind of one friend early on in my networking here in Tennessee said to me, did you have your head in the sand like during the whole real estate upset and the mortgage crisis? I was really unaware of that. So when I came to Tennessee, Nashville is just an incredibly booming market. It is, you cannot be here without being touched by investing. Um, I guess you could be, but I was looking for what was next for me. My children were then attending public school. I had all of this time and energy. I didn't want to go back to corporate America. I had worked in corporate America prior to having my two young children, and I knew that was not the place for me. So I started to look at real estate investing. I started to look at how to build wealth. I started to look at money differently, look at my time differently. And so I dove in, and the best thing that I ever did was I found a real estate investor that I connected with, and I worked for them for 2.5 years. I had time. I didn't have an income requirement. So I was able to like give of my time generously, be super flexible, and, it taught me negotiating skills, even just negotiating my salary, which those are some pretty valuable skills in real estate.
Really valuable. What were some of the things that you actually did for them?
Oh my
Because I
gosh.
know there are some people that are now trying to think outside the box of how do I get in? And
Yeah. The first project that I ever did was this investor wanted all of his uh, legal documents digitalized. So he would sometimes go to a closing and realize, ooh, I don't have that purchase and sale agreement, or I don't have that insurance document with me. So he decided, I want to be able to access it no matter where I am. So that was my first project. So all I needed was my phone, and I downloaded an app to scan. He gave me all of his documentation, and I sat there and just scanned. Now, if I had a scanner, I probably could have fed it through, but there's staples. But it also gave me an opportunity to get familiar with different documentation that's required in a closing process, in a purchase process, in a rehab. Like, it was my window into what are the inner workings of someone who's wholesaling properties, who's buying properties, who's rehabbing them. So that was my first project, but it grew. I mean, I was his executive assistant, and I put granite into one of his properties. I bought lighting fixtures and all the knobs for the kitchen, all the cabinetry, just the knobs for that, because he was rehabbing this project. But I made sure that I was at every opportunity. I would spend time with him at his projects, and I would just ask, "Can I do this? Will you let me do this?" And eventually, with more trust and the more time we worked together, he got more and more comfortable, allowing me to do more and more. So then he eventually bought a property in Nashville, and in East Nashville, that he Airbnb'd, and he rehabbed it first, which, it was my dream to be his project manager, but I wasn't ready for that. But he let me decorate it for the Airbnb, which was super fun. So
And
not
a
only did
smart choice probably on his part.
maybe, but we were so tight, and he saw me as such a partner in his business that, the night that there was a fire in the rehab, he called me and he said, you know, there's been a fire at Marshall Street, which he didn't have to do that, but he just knew that I was connected to this rehab. And so there was this great synergy. And that's what was really important to me. I didn't want to just learn from someone. I wanted to respect them. I wanted them to have an interest in teaching me, and also to value the contribution that I was making. And we certainly had the magic there. So, I ended up overseeing the management of that Airbnb after I decorated it. I didn't do the management. I tried it for like a month, and I was like, yeah, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I got
What
to
was it?
try.
What was some of it that you were like, yeah, I don't want to be doing this?
Well, when you're managing an Airbnb, you're dealing with turning a property and interacting with the clients, which are the guests that are coming in, right? So
Right.
that just was not my jam zone. I was really looking to learn more about investing. And this was just one aspect of investing, like property management, right? So
Right.
property management is not something that makes my heart sing. I know plenty of people that love that aspect of real estate investing. So it was just too many touches for me, especially when I was in the process of trying to absorb as much general information about investing. So, but we turned it over to a lovely property manager who was happy to take care of all of that. Um, from having to go and pull the garbage can out, because your guests aren't going to pull the garbage can out when the trash comes, right?
Right.
So
Right.
there's all these different things that go into managing an Airbnb that are super touch intensive. And I was like, yeah, no, I want to be able to go to this meeting, or be at that property, or go look at this property. So flexibility was huge for me.
That's, but what a great sample. I'm like I always like the analogy of the Costco sample,
Yes.
like,
I just heard that on your recent episode.
yeah, like, let's just have the Costco sample. Yeah, that's not for me. Let me move on to the next. So,
Mhm,
so then you continue to work with him,
mhm.
and ultimately, where did that lead you in your investing journey?
He actually, we had a conversation early on, and I said to him, so I just want to be clear, this isn't how I see myself being long term, right? As your EA. And he goes, absolutely. Because if you stay too long, I'm kicking you out of the nest, because you can do this. So that was so key, right? That he
Right.
believed in me. And I also communicated to him that, this wasn't a long term gig. Um, I eventually handled contact to close for him. I helped him organize some training. He did some classes. He taught real estate investing. So, just all kinds of wonderful creative opportunities. And then he moved out of the market. because the Nashville market wasn't where he wanted to do as much investing anymore. And he moved into a tertiary market down in Chattanooga. And he actually wholesaled me my first rental. And he's gone on to do different things. And I've gone on to work with different people and do my own things. So, being a landlord, now I'm a loan officer with a private equity fund offering financing for retail to rehab projects, commercial projects, multifamily, bridge loans. And I met that person through my original mentor. So I work with people that I know. It's so different than having a W-2 job where you're sending out resumes.
Right.
It's so different.
Right. That's a huge difference. And I mean, just you understand, it's nice in my opinion when someone on the lending side can actually understand the intricacies of what's taking place behind the scene. What a advantage you have at the background, because in your mind you can understand, really really understand, okay, here are the snags that could potentially happen, here are some timelines that might shift. I mean, otherwise it's just a wild guess, but
Hmm.
you lived and breathed that.
Yeah, yeah. So it feels like a very natural progression, and I get to, connect with tons of people, and really, my focus is on women. That's my heart, is to help women and youth, because I have teenagers, and I would love for those two groups in particular to come up a little bit in their understanding of money and their understanding of investing and of building wealth. So that's a passion of mine. So yes, I love that I understand the back end to help people who are trying to, make their dreams come true through real estate investing, which
Definitely.
sometimes means I'm the deliverer of, bad news sometimes, or
I'm
reality.
sorry, we can't give you that loan.
Yeah, or what the biggest one for me is, just be careful when your wholesaler is giving you a rehab estimate. Make sure you go and find out what the real rehab estimate is, because that's super important. They're not rehabbers.
Wow.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
So, oh gosh, that's so true.
Hmm.
So, I want to talk more about that, but I don't want to lose track of time because you have done something extraordinary in creating a mastermind group. And
Hmm.
I know the impact that's had on lives. And I
Hmm.
know that coming out of the wild 2020 pandemic we're seeing, there are a lot of people that understand they need accountability, that they want to grow, they see that things can change so quickly, and I think there's a hunger out there, but a lot of people don't know really what is a mastermind. Am I smart enough to be in one? Can I start one? Will they accept me if I want to be in one? So
Hmm.
I'm hoping that you can unpack with all of your experience with running one.
Yeah, well, so I have a background in psychology and business, and so I worked in the human resource field for many years prior to all of the story I just told you. But I have always had an affinity for groups. You know how some people can learn by reading a book, some people can learn just by listening to something. Well, I learn and grow best and by talking, by listening, by being inspired by others. And when I became an entrepreneur and I took on this huge, you know, goal of learning about investing and becoming an investor, I found that there were a lot of things that were very distracting, from the laundry that's sitting over there because I work from home a lot and the dishes in the sink to, oh, this strategy or, that strategy. So there was a lot of sifting that I had to do and then focus. And I had a hard time with that. Um,
I think that
very
resonates with a lot of people, and especially since so many people are working from home at this point, even still in a few states. So,
Yep. And also juggling parenthood and, relationships, family, and especially for those families that have all been condensed into one household with children going to school. It's been really interesting to watch my accountability group members. So you said I started a mastermind, and I really feel as though I can't take that on as exactly what I started. Um, Mostly because I call them accountability groups. And uh, there is an aspect of what I call masterminding that happens in an accountability group. So
Ooh.
I love that term because it's really mining for new ideas, new inspiration, and new direction or refocus. So that is just kind of a natural outcropping of being in an accountability group, especially if you have a hot seat component, which I do. So in 2019, I decided I wanted accountability. I wanted to focus in. I would create vision boards. I would write goals, but then I would forget them. And I would
Mhm.
get distracted by this crisis or that opportunity. And so I said, let's start an accountability group and see how this goes. And at first, I started it just for myself. I was very selfish. And we met twice a month. We met virtually. This was in 2019. So we weren't virtual because of the pandemic, but I realized I knew how challenging it was to try to get 6 or 7 people together in one spot
Yep.
every week, right? So I wanted
Yep.
to increase the likelihood that people would show up, that I wanted to make it easy for us all to attend. And so we did it over Zoom. And I had a group of 7. Well, we actually started with 8 and we ended up, it shrunk down to 6, which thank goodness. 8 is way too many.
Okay, so that's a good takeaway.
Way too many, way too many. Just for, we met for 60 minutes and I was very clear that we were going to start on time and end on time to respect people's lives and the time that they had available. And we even have certain amounts of time that you can speak. So I run a timer, the timer goes off, that person has, like 30 seconds to a minute to wrap it up, and then the next person starts talking. So it's not a chit chat. This is not a place to come to get to know somebody. I don't know, Julie, you and I had the opportunity to have lunch together, sit down. It was lovely, right? But when
Right.
we go to networking meetings, that's not necessarily the time to see your friends.
No, it's that's the time to go and meet other people.
Yes, you're building new relationships or fostering relationships that you've already made. But I have dear friends that I've made in this industry, and when we see each other at networking meetings, it's more like, "Hey, nice to see you," but there's no like, "Hey, how you been?" kind of thing. Those are so accountability groups aren't that. Accountability. My accountability groups are an opportunity to talk about your highs and lows from the last time we met. So, what are the things you're hitting? What are the things you're struggling with? And then talk about your commitments for the next time. I'm a Brandon Turner fan from Bigger Pockets. And so I basically just watched his video and said, I'm going to take his format. He's very clear. He laid it all out. I'm going to use that and put my own little spin on it. And every meeting, there's either 1 or 2 people that will sit in the hot seat, and that gives them an opportunity to have a deeper dive into what they're experiencing.
Right.
And not that we want to focus on the negative, but when we reach those hurdles that we're having a hard time getting over, it is amazing to talk it through with 4 or 5 other people listening, and then give those people an opportunity to ask you questions, share resources with you. It is not about fixing anything for anyone else. It's
Okay.
really just about like the listening process and then offering what it is that you might have that could help that person. So, um, and that's it. I mean, it's that quick. 60 minutes goes very quickly. I love doing it over Zoom. We've been able to screen share. We use a component where all of our goals are tracked on a Google Drive sheet or Google sheet that I created. And you write in your highs and your lows, you write in your commitments for each goal, and you should be looking at that while we're meeting. So during the pandemic, it was beautiful because twice a month I watched my accountability group members, some of them thriving. I mean, some people
Mhm.
thrived during this period. I know some people have made more money this past year than they have in a few years, right? Other people have struggled. They've either lost jobs or deals have been more difficult to find. the stress of being, having to oversee the education of your children has really put a lot on some of my members. But I'm telling you, having this place to come and remember what your dreams are and to get encouragement from each other that it's okay, that things didn't turn out the way that we expected at the beginning of 2020. Every single one of my goals that I wrote at the beginning of 2020 had a had an edit or two in them through the year.
I appreciate your candidness on that.
None of them looked the way that I thought they were going to look. As a loan officer, lending basically dried up. I mean, there
Mhm.
was a period of time where we just weren't offering any loans through, our business for a period of time when as the pandemics, in early March and April, there was a lot that was yet to be seen. So we were very conservative. Some people who were loan officers in a bank were booming because what was everybody doing at that point? They were refinancing because rates were,
Yeah.
rates were going down, down, down. And in
Wow.
Nashville, people have still been buying new home, buying their homes at the supply here is so low because everybody is still purchasing property and they're coming to Nashville to do it. So, and other
It
places. It's not the only place.
right. Well, and yeah, even where I'm at up in North Idaho, it's the same way. It's like just housing shortage, just
Mhm.
can't build fast enough for everybody coming. You're like, where are you coming from? I don't understand. I know where they're coming from. But
Yes, we do.
we know where they're coming from. But okay, so what I love that you know your clarification, accountability groups, and you. I think when we were together, having lunch, we spoke about this a little bit because I had launched an accountability group that was just from one of my networks, and it was simply I don't want to get lost in the shuffle and I need accountability. And by doing that, it completely changed in my estimation. I think my whole COVID experience was completely different because I had that accountability and I knew I was going to have to show up and I knew I needed to just stay on track. And so I just really focused and zeroed in. But it was because I, just like you, were kindred spirits like that. Like, let me invite this accountability into my life. Hey, who wants to come along with me? So that's how I started my group. And there was an amazing amount of interest within the group of, yes, I want to. And I did cap it at 6, but that's probably because I have that background in education where I'm like, oh, small groups, and I only want to do an hour. But how did you go about finding people for your accountability group? Did you tap
I
into
use
your network or?
I just use good old Facebook. So, when I first started, it was just for me. And so a lot of my Facebook friends that were prior to my living in Tennessee had probably no interest in real estate, but I just put it out there and just said, hey, if there's anybody out there that is interested in doing this with me. And I remember like about to hit the send button and I looked to my partner at the time and I said to him, what if nobody replies? Like, how terrifying is that? And this is just part of my growth because I watch people do this all the time, ask questions, put things out there, and I'm like, wow, there's so much courage. But the courage it takes to just put it out there, put your idea out there and say, this is something I want to do. Like you said, anybody else want to join me? And I was so pleased that I had as many people that were interested. And some people didn't like the virtual component. Some people, the schedule just didn't work. We had it at just one time that year, and that was at 7 p.m. So, for different reasons, people fell off, but we ended up with that core group that was amazing. And some of those people followed me into my 2020 groups, which I grew into running 3 different groups. So, I offered different times, and I wasn't a member of every single group, so I put myself in a position of leadership, and I think that's one thing. Julie, I'm not sure in your experience that if you found this, but if you're going to start the group, it is going to require you to be the person that reminds people when the meeting is happening, send out the calendar invite, set up the Zoom link or the face one of the accountability groups I am a member of. I don't lead it. I'm a member of that group is over the Facebook rooms. So there's so many great resources available to us that can, we can meet virtually. So I just encourage you to take advantage of it. Make sure that there's a clear leader, make sure that there are clear timelines, because it is easy to get chatty. It is easy to get distracted even in a meeting, and those structures help us be successful and stay on task. And don't worry if you don't get it perfect, because it's
That's
a
a
little messy in the beginning, right?
it sure is. Well, and I erred on the side of I can be very regimented. And so, finding that balance depending on what your personality is of like being over regimented, being under regimented, like you have to have that strength to speak up and say, "Oh, your time's up. The timer went off.
Mhm.
Oh, we got to move on."
Yep.
Some of this for everybody's personality, there is definitely a growth curve that takes place through it all. Now, how did you? Okay, with now that you have multiple groups,
Mhm.
and you're overseeing it,
Mhm.
I know that I have this question, and I know I'm not a snowflake. So other people listening are going to say, "Well, I want to do what Allison's doing." And so, are you charging for this?
Yes, I
You're
did
getting
start
is there
charging.
compensation, and how do you go about that component?
Oh, talk about the second time that I was terrified. You go from asking your friends to do something with you complimentary for free to I'm going to actually start charging. And I'm telling you, the whole process of my own mindset about my value and my confidence, and was I providing enough value? That's a whole conversation in itself. But I did start charging because really what I find is that when we pay for something, we value it
Yep.
a little bit more than.
A lot more. If we have money on the line,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And so I started charging. My accountability groups are an annual commitment. I have not yet seen a way to do shorter pieces of commitment yet, because they
Yeah,
require systems. Anybody who's
right.
been in this business or learning about investing, it's entrepreneurship, small business management, it's all about the systems you have in place. So I haven't yet had a picture of how to incorporate that in a way that I'm comfortable with, right?
Yeah.
So I have to be comfortable with running this business. But I started charging. I started putting requirements into place about attendance. We can only miss, I'm trying to remember, two, I think the third unexcused absence without like, I've got COVID, I've had a family member die, I've been in a terrible accident. You're no longer allowed to participate in the accountability group. So we can't be held accountable if people don't show up to hold us accountable, right? So attendance is
That's
super
right.
important. That was really difficult to communicate to people that there was like I realized I was maybe going to have to fire accountability group members, and that is not fun.
Highest level of accountability right there. But you haven't
Exactly.
had to do it.
One time I have, and another time a member, actually two other times. One time was both of them were during 2020. One person had to pivot financially, and so they took up another real estate investing, kind of was put on the shelf. And even though I didn't focus this just on real estate investors, it was our primary focus. And also that member's she was providing a service, and the time that we held our meeting was kind of getting in the way of her being able to provide a service and generate income. So,
Yeah.
and the same with the other gentleman that, so people have just fallen off, which another growth opportunity for me, because it's not about me personally. Even if they didn't
No.
like my accountability group, which in neither case was that the what they shared with me. It was just life. They had to make some hard decisions. And I also fired an accountability group member once. I didn't fire them. I love that word because it's a little dramatic, but
Right.
in 2019 they were part of the founding members of one of my groups, and they had actually joined a true mastermind group where they were paying like $2,500 a month for coaching, and there was a pretty serious time commitment. And I just really explored with them, was it beneficial for them to stay in our group when they were dedicating so many resources to that group. Plus, they had a full time job. Plus, they were a real estate agent. So I'm like, you know, I,
Right.
I just, I just said, I don't think it's good for you to stay. I think you need more bandwidth to do the things. So sometimes people outgrow you too, or outgrow me.
You gave them wings to fly though. You're like out of the nest. And that actually is almost like a nod back to your mentor when he first
Mhm.
started, he said like, no, I would kick you out and you're going to go do your own thing at some point anyway. Of course you're not going to
Exactly.
wear this hat forever.
Yep. And I
Wow.
really think that's what growth is about, right? It's not
Right.
about keeping people near us and serving us, or it's about giving people wings, whether we're parents, whether we're mentors, whether it's a season that someone's with us. um, and I've had the joy of watching people hold on during the pandemic. I've had the joy of watching accountability group members meet and go and make tons of money together. I have two members that are doing, I think, their fifth or sixth flip together, and they just continue to invest together, and they didn't know each other before they met. So it's really been beautiful. I've watched seniors come into my group in their 70s. I've watched people in their early 20s. So, generationally, it's amazing to me to watch all different people come in and participate and grow as a result of it. So I'll keep doing it. It is like just so much fun. I'm done. I'm exhausted at the end of my Thursdays because that's my accountability group day. But I'm also, my heart's so full of joy and love.
It is exhausting. And if, that is definitely something to be wide-eyed about if you go down the path of starting. I like that you started with one and you kind of sampled it and, tried it on for size and then, okay, I can expand this out now. Because even just with different groups that I orchestrated during 2020, it was all every group was different. I didn't lock myself into a specific, like, okay, well, this is going to be my meetup. I would just find something that I wanted to learn about, like we talked about, like, what is it that I need? Oh, okay, I need to learn about that. Great. I'm going to get some experts together and I'm going to invite tons of people to come and let's learn about this. And every experience, it would just, kind of tweak it a little bit more, try something new, but it's exhausting. The learning component of it is
Mhm.
exhausting, and then also just if you want it to be a thriving opportunity for people, it takes energy on your part. You have to bring some
Mhm.
energy to it. So
Yeah.
that's really wise advice.
Monique Helm is someone that I met early on in my investing career, and she wrote a book called The Real Estate Guide to Investing for the Real Estate Goddess. I think it is. I'm not sure. She's out of
I
California, but
think so. I adore her.
yeah,
She's part of my, what I call my my real estate testimony. I have my faith testimony and then I have my real estate testimony, and she's the first person that taught me about like syndication.
that's
So,
amazing because I don't think I knew that we had that in common.
same for you.
Well, she wasn't the first person, but she definitely was the first person that kind of ignited more for me that spark I had for women. And I was like, look at what
Uh-huh.
she's doing. If she can do that, for sure, there's going to be a group of women that I can encourage and help along. And that was one thing my first mentor taught me. If anybody is worried about, oh, there's so many accountability groups, there's so many mastermind groups, there's so many mentors out there are people who my voice resonates with, my tone resonates with, my mannerisms resonate with. And so there are people that will come to me because it's just a good fit.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to just be who you are, take the risk, get out there, dream, share your dreams with people. And yeah, you're going to be disappointed. A lot of what we do is about chasing failure on our way to success. A lot of the books that I bet you and I read, Julie, teach us about that, whether it's the number of offers that we have to make, the number of no's we need to get through in order to get to the yes, right?
That
So,
there's a book. So my book club is wrapping up. I'm going to look it up. We're wrapping up one book, and I had an idea for what I wanted to. They said it was supposed to just be one book, and I just wanted some accountability on a particular read. And because Brandon Burchard's high performance habits, I really wanted to implement them and digest them. And I'm like you, I digest better in community and with other people. And it's a powerful way of learning. Somebody posted recently, I think it was Rodney Thompson over on LinkedIn. He's reading The Obstacle is the Way. I just looked it up.
I've never
And
heard of that book.
and it's on its way. Amazon says it's arriving tomorrow by 10 o'clock. But that's my next read. And it has to do with embracing the struggle and enjoying the struggle. So I just want to echo all that, to echo what you were just saying, that there is disappointment, there are setbacks, but
Mhm.
that's not the stop spot.
Mm-mm. No, no. And also the thing, the video I was watching this morning, because it's important that we keep feeding our spirits and our mind with hope and with positivity. Um, as people who are entrepreneurs, we're not showing up necessarily at the desk with a list of tasks that we need to accomplish. We have to like create those ourselves. Is to, oh my goodness, I think I just lost it. I can't remember what I was about to say. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. I've done this so many times. We're talking about struggle and obstacles, and those aren't the end. And
Mhm. Yep. It'll come to me after we've started talking about something else.
if
Oh,
that,
it came to me. It came back to me.
yeah,
As you step out into your dream, be careful that you don't listen to the doubt. Be careful that you don't. Now, we all have probably heard, if you're in real estate investing, about the naysayers in our lives and the kind of how our relationship changes with them. But if you haven't done any research or reading about the naysayer that lives inside your brain, that's a super important thing to realize. Is our brains are reptilian. They actually are designed to keep us safe, but we don't live in a world that's dangerous anymore day to day. So we have to be careful of our thoughts. And there's a lot of research, a lot of great books out there about the brain and about managing our thoughts. But don't listen to that doubt. Just stay focused on the decision you made and surround yourself with people that are going to encourage and spur you on and remind you. And if you are doubting, that you can do this, and also have someone that you look up to and be stretching. Like, even as an adult woman in middle age, I still have people that, some of them are younger than me, that are ahead of me in this area, and I'm like, I want to be like them. And so I keep going after it.
I love role models. I adopt lots of role models, and it usually has to do with what is it where am I trying to grow, and I find a role model, like, yes, you're my role model. I want to be just like you in this area.
Hmm.
It's
And it can
powerful.
be someone we know or someone that we just witness their amazingness, um, in our day-to-day experiences. So there's role models all around us. So keep going after them. I encourage that.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Allison, I thank you so much for joining us and
Yeah.
sharing not just your experience, but really giving us a deeper look into accountability groups and the power that comes from them and the joy. I agree with you. There's so much joy that comes. Um, are there any other parting words? I always ask guests this, any
Mhm.
gems that is something we didn't touch on that you're like, I really want to make sure people know this.
Yeah, I would encourage those that are introverts, because some may say that accountability is only for extroverts, but I have not found that to be my experience. Accountability is for everyone, and you can participate regardless of whether your preference is for getting energy internally or externally. Age is not an issue. We've broken through that barrier. My dream is to create an accountability group for teens. So that's something that I've been dreaming about and looking for opportunities to do that. And I think that's it. Just keep dreaming. Keep sharing your dreams.
I
And
love dreams.
yeah, it's possible.
It
Right?
absolutely.
The world is wide open with virtual meetings now, so there's no reason that we can't connect.
Oh, that's so true. Well, thank you again, Allison, for joining us. And to my awesome listeners, you are just that one decision away. And maybe you need to join an accountability group so that you can keep those decisions in check. And if you don't have one, you can do what Allison and I did and just start your own. There are no excuses. You just make it happen and don't get in your own way. So make those choices so that you can have your freedom.
Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. This episode was brought to you by Three Keys Investments. They are dedicated to helping people like you, you, my awesome listeners, develop passive income and legacy wealth through multifamily investing. Feel free to check out their website, threekeysinvestments.com, to see if there's an offering that will help your portfolio grow and meet all of your needs. If you haven't already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, all of those bells and whistles, I would be absolutely honored if you would do that for Ask Me How I Know. Thanks again, and go make it a great day.